The scoreboard program, it's on a brand new Monday. Having some rains outside, slight drizzle throughout the entire day. Didn't disturb proceedings over there in Barbados, where the West Indies didn't have the kind of start they expected at the beginning of the period. Lost the two batsmen who were set overnight, and then succumbed to 312 paltry total after having that massive partnership yesterday. And then the Pakistanis had their own way for a long time, lost some wickets, but it would have been due to carelessness rather than the skills of our bowler. Well, on the program today, we have the front page where we'll be speaking to Andrew Edwards, the head coach of the National Under-17 team, just back from their sojourn in Panama. And I'm flanked on the left wing this evening by the man Simon Preston, and on the right, the lanky Stephen Stanbury, as we welcome you to the program. The listener's response will come here at 4:45, and then at 5 o'clock, the Red Stripe Premier League roundup with Stephen Stanbury. And then 5:30, we discuss the quarterfinal between Mobe and Arnett Gardens. All right, Mr. Edwards, welcome to the program.
Good evening, gentlemen. Thank you very much for having me.
Good evening, Coach.
Well, I know it must be a hard task, Andrew, but we need to look at what transpired and to see where do we go from here. Just from your assessment, we managed to get some goals, which was good. But what is the difference between the teams that we played, the U.S., Mexico, El Salvador, and the Jamaican team? What have you seen?
Well, I think the major difference, certainly in the case of the U.S. and Mexico, is that those players have had a longer and deeper preparation, and their players are much more game savvy, far much more football experience, so they make better decisions. They are extremely quick to the ball. They close it down really, really quickly. And they generally, you can see that their football brain, as we would say, is at a much higher level than ours. And I think that is something that comes largely from playing experiences.
Andrew, as you mentioned those things, you have been the coach in charge. How can we close those gaps? Because we have been seeing this from time immemorial. And, it's really is going to be a strain on anybody who coach a team that we don't have the kind of start that these teams have. What can be done, Andrew Edwards?
I think one of the things we have to do is to look at how we have gained success in the past at this level. And I think one of the things that we did on both occasions that we qualified, we had extensive periods of preparation in foreign countries that allowed us to play against opposition that were on the same level or better than us. We played on very, very good surfaces. We played in hostile environments, and we adapted. And then the team became, to use a regular phrase, battle hardened, and they started to understand. They became football savvy. They made proper decisions when it was required of them. None of the teams that we have prepared locally has ever gone on to qualify at any of the levels, neither youth, senior, nor under 20s. And so that has to be a critical part of the consideration. And then we have to look at the investment that we are making. Is it an investment for a tournament, or is it an investment for the long term, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years down the road? Because sometimes the difference between $1 million and the success you get now versus the success you seek later on is something that has to be taken into deeper consideration, I would say.
I don't know why we're not learning, Andrew, because I recall about 2 years ago, we had our best chance of qualifying for a female tournament. But the investment just wasn't there, and we just missed out because of that, but we don't seem to learn. Plus, you have gone back to a situation where we were qualified in 98 for the World Cup, and you spoke about the two other qualifications of the Under-17. And what we did then, we refuse to do now. I don't know, it's not your remit to really look at it, but it must bear on your mind as to how do you combat that for the future?
It does, but again, you have to do the best with what you are given, and at the same time you try to make make representation for what you believe is ideal. To what extent that is available and provided is another issue. But once we are in the job, we will continue to give it the very best we can give it, and we will continue to lobby for the things that we think is important to make us able to move to the next level.
I've been around football for some time, and I met you quite early in the day, Andrew, and I've seen your growth. I've read your documents, etc. But at a point in time, if I might make a comment, it must be an exercise in futility. Yeah. If we are going up against people who are doing things that we are near even approximating in terms of what you have to do, and then you come back and you have to explain yourself away. But on a positive side, before I introduce Simon and Stephen, what have you taken away from the tournament in terms of the Jamaicans' performances?
I think we were always up against it from day one. You know, we got an extremely difficult draw with the two most successful teams in CONCACAF in our group, with only two teams progressing. That was always asking for something bordering on miraculous to make it through. You know, I don't think I don't think that the talent level is far. The gap is very far. I think what is very different is the education. In football we talk about different ages, and our players are basically functioning at 14, 15 years old in terms of their football experience and knowledge. And whereas we're playing against players who are 16, 17 years old, but playing more like 17, 18 years old. In some cases, like, you could say they are even 19 years old in terms of how they play. You know, and that is one of the challenges. On the other side, though, look at our performances in terms of players. We had some players who were very, very consistent and who did quite well for themselves, and I think at the top of that list has to be Shane Ricketts from Reno. Yeah. And that is something that I want to elaborate a bit, because he's the only player in our team who played Premier League football.
All right, hold the argument. You have to take the break, Andrew, but very, very critical information coming from you. We'll continue with that after this break.
You're listening to the award-winning Scoreboard on your number one sports radio station, KLAS Sports FM 89, powered by ESPN.
Okay, welcome back to the Scoreboard. Stratton Palmer along with Simon Preston and Stephen Stanbury, and we have been speaking to National Under-17 coach Andrew Edwards. Just before the break, Andrew, before I allow the two youngsters to take their aim, you were speaking about the consistency of the player being an area that we have to look at, and you spoke about the goalkeeper in particularly who performed well.
No, I was mentioning Shane Ricketts, who was the only player who plays Premier League for us. I think he was the most consistent performer throughout the tournament for Jamaica. He maintained a high level, and he had good success doing everything that he did on the field. I think that is something that we have to look at in terms of, from the clubs themselves, they have to look at it as an investment for themselves and the country by allowing the kids to play earlier in the Premiership. And then there have been discussions about allowing the under-17s and under-20s to play as guest teams in the National Premiership. That has to be a consideration as well. I don't see. I think it would be very, very good for the boys if they are allowed that kind of competition, because obviously they'll be playing up, and if they are playing for points, then the Premier League teams will not be taking it as lightly as they would normally take a practice game where they're thinking, oh, we don't want to get hurt, we don't want to hurt these kids, these are national players. But if they're playing in a league where there are points being awarded and all of that, then it matters, you know. It's a total different psychology altogether.
All right, Coach. Where to start? I mean, trying to pick your brain a bit, knowing the challenges that we faced, as you mentioned earlier. How is it you go about motivating these guys? You're playing top quality teams such as the United States and Mexico, and you know that the odds are stacked against you. You just go into the game hoping for a miracle?
Of course not. We have to start with the belief that that we can achieve. You know, the fact that we didn't achieve doesn't mean that we didn't believe we could, and that we didn't prepare with that aim. obviously, when you fail, then you have to reflect on it. But there's also the reality that this could have happened. I mean, I honestly did not foresee us being trashed as badly as we were in those two games, albeit under different circumstances in both of them. However, the kids were made to understand that it's not just their performances would not have consequences just for the tournament or for the moment, but that it has consequences for their futures. You know, I mean, there were a lot of scouts there watching the games that could have provided opportunities for them on an individual level. On a national level, they have to see themselves as being part of the national teams ahead of as they progress. You know, you have under 20, under 23, and the senior teams that they will compete for, and then they are going to be competing against the very same players. So they needed to have made some impressions that would give them the confidence and the belief to go back and work harder to try and get to that level, because we have the basic talent, I believe. We need to change our overall attitudes to preparation on an individual level. I think the boys kind of picked that up for themselves, and we made sure to stress it as coaches. And then, of course, they have to set themselves performance goals as well, you know, because individual performance goals, that is things that they wanted to improve. And I think while a lot of them would be disappointed that they didn't achieve their performance goals, a number of them can say that they accomplished their performance goals on an individual level.
Andrew, two things. Firstly, Raywin Sr., we saw him come off a bit earlier against the Americans. How is he doing quite so far? And secondly, can you see like the core of this squad being part of the under-20 team in another 18 months or so when qualification for that comes around?
Raywin got a serious knee punch, as they call it, just above the knee. And he also had some other complications brought about by the conditions of the field and the footwear that he has. So, but he's getting back to normalcy. So he's in a pretty good state, I think. Obviously, we'll need some more time to get back to full fitness. As to the second part of your question, or the second question, I think certainly the goalkeepers have the basis to compete for places in the next under-20 team. A couple of the outfield players will definitely, if they continue to push on and progress, also knock on that door. The truth be told, though, is that because the under-20, you'll find a lot of 20-year-olds in it, not many of them will make the transition immediately. But for those who are just 16 in 2017, they will also have the under-22 up to 2021. So they'll have two bites of the cherry, so to speak. And for them, I think the prospects are great.
Andrew, in terms of the physical specimen that you would have had compared, I know normally you look at the South American players, the development in the thigh, the legs, etc., etc. Yeah. How do we compare with the physicality of these teams?
Well, in terms of height, I thought we matched up quite well. In fact, I don't recall seeing a player in the tournament that was as tall as Jamal Itope. On the flip side of that, though, laterally we were puny, for want of a better way. There was no lateral development in the most cases. The muscular structures were weak and lacking. And that is not for want of trying on the part of the JFF and the staff, though, because I think we did a pretty good job to get them to the levels that they were.
Would it mean, therefore, that you have to identify these players earlier, Andrew, to get them to that level competition time?
Definitely. Identifying them earlier is a big part of the the solution. And, of course, the other part of the solution is to get them on a nutrition program, within their own homes and schools. That is good enough for a high level performance. I think our kids don't generally eat properly, and the nutritional needs that will allow them to train properly is one thing. On the other side of it, I think within the schools and the clubs that they are associated with, there has to be a greater investment in the physical preparation of the players. You know, gym work or just pure physical conditioning, because nowadays in football, a lot of the physical conditioning is not necessarily done in the gym, but done on the field. And a lot of it is what we call integrated physical training. So you do it with the ball, you know, and I think if clubs start to pay attention to that, especially when they have young national prospects, then they themselves can reap good dividends when these players move on.
Andrew, keep up. I know it's difficult given the deficiencies, but certainly you must have felt good with the job that you had done, and hope you'll continue on it. Thanks for joining us on the scoreboard.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
All right, thank you. Visit Mac Jones Locksmith Limited for your vaults, safes, security locks and automated gates at 3 to 5 Osborne Road.